What's going on, Mad Hatters, and welcome back to the Madhouse. And today it is all about that super dead deck, Amber Steel Aggro, because ladies and gentlemen, you have been getting gaslighted by all of your friends and all the Discord channels and the Reddit pages, and them saying that, well, it's dead, that Amber Steel Aggro doesn't stand a chance anymore. Well, they're incredibly wrong. Like, I don't know how else to put it other than the fact that they are just so, it's like saying that Red Purple was dead and then Ed took it and won Continentals, right? Like, Amber Steel Aggro is definitely not dead. So if you're a big Amber Steel Aggro fan, then this is the video for you. Or if you're tired of losing to it, this is probably also the video for you. So let's get into it. Let's look at some stuff. But before we do, I've got to announce a couple things. I've got to announce a giveaway, all right, put on by Safari Zone Collectibles, all right, and a big event. So Safari Zone Collectibles they're back to doing the Trove giveaway at the beginning of each set. So if you want to know how you can enter to win that, you're gonna have to watch the video for a little bit, and I'll tell you how later, because we're gonna give that Trove away in 2 days so we can get it mailed on Friday. The other thing is the Whispers in the Well Build a K event, and we've decided to change things up a little. Talk to Angel, talk to Vince, our judge, and we've decided to make things a little bit easier, but also a little bit more exciting for everyone. And what that is we've made it cheaper to get in, so it's $30 for the entry to the event. You get a pack of Whispers for participating, a pack of Whispers for giving us a printed deck list and not an email, and then at 100 players, we double the prize pool, or Angel will double the prize pool. So that means at 100 players, the prize pool goes from $3,000 to $6,000. Okay, so that's huge. If we get 110 people, that's a $6,600 prize pool. Okay, that's store credit that you can use whenever, because unlike some stores, Safari Zone Collectibles is not going anywhere anytime soon. So this is in Smyrna, Delaware on November 29th. So make sure you check it out. Again, 100 people, $6,000 event for $30. Okay, I don't know where you're gonna get much better than that. So with that, let's talk about Amber Steel Aggro. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the list that I've been running with a lot of success on that Forbidden Fight Club site. Now, a couple things, labels first. You have to understand that Fight Club is a time in preseason, especially best of one, where people like to test a lot of jank. They like to be a little greedy, things like that. So the results on what you see on Fight Club aren't always 100% accurate, so keep that in mind. But I will say that even against lists that are teching for aggro, they're running things like Captain Hooks and spooky sites, the list has still felt really good. So with that out of the way, Amber Steel Aggro in all of its glory. And this is the list that I've been running, and it's felt really good. Okay, it still does a lot of the same busted things that it did last set, except now it can do it more effectively. And what I mean by that is our Aurora start has so many more opportunities now because we have more princesses. So now we're able to go Aurora on one, and previously if you wanted to see the quadruple 1-drop or the double 1-drop plus fire the cannons, you had to have Mulan. But now we also have Elenwee to be able to have that start, so we can go Aurora plus Daisy plus Mulan, right? Something like that, or plus Elenwee. We can also go Aurora into a Rapunzel into Daisy Duck, or we can go Aurora into a Lilo into an Elenwee or Mulan. So the point is instead of 4 1-drops to work on the Aurora effect, now we have the 8 1-drops to work on the Aurora effect, and that is extremely important. Like that is really big, because it lets us go so wide so fast that we can really abuse that we can get that really early lore, and that's a big deal. So other things we've added in this list is we go heavy into the bodyguards, and I went heavy into the bodyguards for a couple reasons. A, it just feels really good. It's really nice with Rapunzel, and B, it's really good into Purple Steel as well. Purple Steel's a tough match, and it's not going anywhere. Hopefully Blue Steel can continue to push it out. That way we don't have to worry about Purple Steel, but that's a conversation for a different video. But the bodyguards really helps with that. The Gem Deer really slows things down. If you go something like Aurora into Rapunzel plus Daisy Duck into Gem Deer or Raja, Purple Steel has a really hard time handling that because your Rapunzel is able to protect that Raja or Gem Deer from at least one hit. So that's something. And if you use Fire the Cannons as well to hit something, so maybe you go Aurora into Rapunzel plus Fire the Cannons to take out their Captain Hook, then they're going to have a really tough time answering any of your bodyguards. So the bodyguards have been really big, and that has been something like the Raja trades really well into everything except for Lexington. So that is a big issue, but the bodyguards, they've just felt good. So that's this list. You'll notice the one Troubadour, that's only because I didn't want to run 4 Fire the Cannons. That one Troubadour could be anything. It could be one Troubadour, one Mowgli, one Mickey Mouse, like a 4th Fire the Cannon. If you want, it's up to you. But let's look at some of the things that I've considered changing. All right, some of the things I've considered changing, and I haven't done a lot of testing with this list yet, is going into the Mowglis. And the reasons I would go into the Mowglis is because a lot of people are starting to play Spooky Sight. Now, if a lot of people are starting to tech in Spooky Sight, why don't I immediately tech in 4 Mowglis? And the reason for that is because out of the 6 games that I've seen Spooky Sight played against me, I've lost 1. And the only reason I lost that 1 game is because they used 1 Spooky Sight and then they used a 2nd Spooky Sight. And like right after that. So in the first 5 turns, they managed to find both Spooky Sights without any visions or anything like that. And in my new camera zoomed in on my face, but so that happened, right? And that's variance like that. If they wouldn't have had the 2nd Spooky Sight, then they would have lost, because now what you're doing with the deck is you go turn 1, 2, 3, and then blue is able to play their Spooky Sight the next turn, so you hold back the dock. Hopefully you have like a Strength of a Raging Fire or something you can hard cast on like their Cinderella, and then they Spooky Sight, and then you slam down whatever you have in your hand plus dock plus whatever you have in your hand if you really wanted to, and then unless they have Spooky Sight, they just lose on the spot. So I don't know if the Mowglis are needed yet, but they're there. The other option that you could do is Troubadour. And Troubadour, you could add in Troubadour on either the Mowgli slot or the Penny slot like that. So Troubadour is something you could add back in. This list you'll notice is no Tianas, because Tiana it can be really slow. It can be really slow against a lot of these different like blue green and blue steel. You just don't need them. The Tiana is not as effective as you would think. You're better off you're just always better off going Lady plus a 2-drop and on turn 3, or just playing a 2-drop plus a 1-drop. Like, it doesn't anything like that, because Tiana, every game that I've played Tiana against blue steel with, and where I've experimented with, okay, maybe I can get Tiana down and Tiana feels good, and because it'll slow them down, it hasn't gone well for me. The answer is always play more characters against blue steel early. Don't try and get the Tiana down. So this list focuses on dropping the Tiana and instead going something like this. So again, you can go Troubadour in there for Penny or Mowgli if you really didn't want to run the Mowgli route. You'll also notice that this doesn't have as many bodyguards. So maybe the real answer is something like this, and then you just add the Mowgli in for 1 Troubadour and 1 Raja, and then you could have the 2 Mowglis. So now you have 2 Mowglis plus the 4 Petes, and that could be an answer as well. So a couple things to play with as we adjust to the meta and see where things go. Now, looking at things you could also add is here, and there's a couple different reasons on why we might add some of these cards. So first up top we have Pluto plus Bolt. Pluto plus Bolt is something that I played around with last set towards the end of it, and I wasn't against it. You completely blew out Blurple if you go Pluto into Bolt on turn 2 into literally anything on turn 3, especially a Gem Deer though. At that point, Blurple just loses on the spot. Like, there's really nothing they can do, and so Bolt felt really good. So the idea is, what if we can continue on that same logic and blow out blue steel and blue green, because again, they can't really deal with it, especially because blue green has been cutting their Baymaxes right now. So that is something that I want to experiment with, is just going super hard in the paint and going, now we have Pluto and Aurora as our turn 1, so we can really maximize our triple 1-drops or our quadruple 1-drops, or we can go Bolt on turn 2 if we see Pluto. So that feels really good. The other things, of course, are Troubadour. Troubadour, again, being able to sing Strength of a Raging Fire on turn 3, especially if you cut Tiana. Troubadour could be really effective. Mickey Mouse, one of the people in my Discord has been testing 2 of Mickey Mouse, and he's really enjoyed it, where you give all your characters that extra health, and that can be extremely difficult for anyone to deal with, Purple Steel or anyone. So it's like giving your character, it's like a Rapunzel's tower on a big character. One thing that I'd like to experiment with is maybe there's a world where you can go Mickey Mouse plus Beyond the Horizon, but that might be too much, you know, because then you have those dead Beyond the Horizon cards. So I don't know if that's the route to go. But he's really enjoyed just teching in the 2 Mickey Mouses. Sven is always on the back of my mind. I think it's a lot weaker this set because your opponent, especially Blue Steel, is using things like Vincenzo and Hades. So Vincenzo plus Hades doesn't care if your characters are ready. They just blow up your characters. So I think Sven's a lot weaker this set, but it does have matchups where it can be better in, such as Purple Steel, for example. And then finally, Goliath. This is the least likely to make the cut in my deck, but the idea behind Goliath is you just add in 1. So in the deck list where I had like the 1 Troubadour, you could go 1 Goliath, and with the 1 Goliath, you can really punish the spooky sites. And that's kind of the idea there, but that'll probably never happen, adding in Goliath. I don't know. You can't really say never, because there's always a possibility. It'd definitely be a spice, right? It'd definitely be a spicy option. But the biggest ones on this list are Pluto plus Bolt that I look forward to testing the most. So let's look at some of the matchups, and the first one is blue-green. The biggest thing with blue-green and green-blue to realize is how quickly they get to 6 ink now. So turn 1, they ink and pass. Maybe they play a Mulan, maybe they play a Captain Hook. Best case scenario, they pass. In turn 2, they sail or Tipo, all right? And then Blue Steel especially, turn 3, they can go Pleakley or they can go Cinderella. So now they go to 5 ink, and then on their turn 4, they go to 6 ink. So that means on turn 4, they are able to drop a Tinkerbell, and they are able to drop a spooky sight. So those are things that you have to keep in mind. Anything else, we're not really concerned about. I'm not as concerned about a Robin Hood on turn 6. I'm not as concerned about the Jasmine or, you know, some of these other options they're running. Tinkerbell, though, Tinkerbell is a major problem. So you have to understand that going in, once they know they're against aggro, they're going to go hard to go that route. Now, if they get it, it's not the end of the world. So that's important to note. So with that being said, what are we trying to do? Like I said, in this matchup, you just have to go fast. Like you have to go pedal to the metal. And you'll notice this for a few of these. You want to go Aurora into a bunch of 1-drops. That's massive, all right? You want to go Aurora into a bunch of 1-drops. In this matchup, I specifically recommend Elenwe over Mulan, because if they drop their Tinkerbell on turn 4, then your Mulans get, well, banished. So at least your Elenways can continue to quest, right? So the ideal start would be Aurora into a bunch of Daisy Ducks, and they can't do anything about that. So next up, you can then go Lady into Nala and go really fast that way, and then blow something up at that point on your turn 4. So another route that you could go is Troubadour on turn 2 if you're running the Troubadour option, or Tiana, because then you can try and set up a strong Strength of a Raging Fire when they play Tinkerbell, or just Strength of a Raging Fire to take out their Cinderella, because you have to understand that on turn 4 they're going to sing Thunderbolt with their Cinderella, and they're going to play Tinkerbell. So those are really big problems for us. So that Cinderella, you may not think it's much of an issue, but it really is. That Cinderella represents a lot of problems because they also don't have to ink anymore once they get Cinderella down. Cinderella is just going to cycle through their deck and give them more and more ink every turn. So other good cards are Fire the Cannons. Fire the Cannons is a really good on the draw option for this deck unless you have the Mulan in hand. And I say Fire the Cannons is a good on the draw card for this matchup because if they don't run Captain Hook, then you don't really need it. If they like Mulan, I'm not as worried about, but Captain Hook is something we're worried about. So if they don't run Captain Hook, you don't need Fire the Cannons. You can kind of put that away and go for other options. And then Mowgli is really good going into their turn 4. So that's something that you can play and be done with it. I wouldn't recommend it before turn 4. Mowgli's not your turn 2 play. Wait a little bit, okay? Wait till you get to that point so then you can use it. And another nice thing about it is they might be holding on to Spooky Sight and they see they're against aggro, so they keep it with their Cinderella trigger instead of discard or inking it with their Cinderella trigger. And now you can Mowgli in response to that, and they got rid of a different really good card because they were really hoping to go Spooky Sight on their turn 4. So this is the route that I want to go for Blue Steel. Again, every game that I've started Tiana has not gone well for me. I can't say that I've lost everyone, but it's definitely been much tougher than just going Aurora or Daisy into double 1-drop and things like that. Just getting really wide and making it that much harder for my opponent to just answer one thing at a time and keep me from getting to 20 lore. Next up is the next big baddie, all right, that we're going to see a lot of, and that's a green blue. And again, you have to understand 6 ink turn 4. And this is the deck that it's interesting. I think Blue Steel is a tougher matchup for Amber Steel aggro. Blue-green, Baja Blast has a lot of answers for a wide board. They could run Spooky Sight, and they could run Under the Sea. They could also run John Silver. They could also run Baymax, and those are all things. But if we run Fire the Cannons, that really just blows up a lot of what they're trying to do. So against Baja Blast, I'm always keeping Fire the Cannons. Always. No questions asked. I'm always keeping Fire the Cannons. The other stuff, you're just going fast again. You're going fast to avoid the turn 4 Spooky Sight, to avoid John Silver's, to avoid all this other stuff that they may do. Under the Sea, things like that. Strength of Raging Fire is perfectly fine to keep. I'm not against that. Mowgli, another one that I'm perfectly fine to keep, especially on the draw. I mean, it says on the draw there. I think you're fine keeping Mowgli no matter what. On the play or on the draw, I think would feel fine now that I think about it. So you can kind of pretend that's not even there. One thing to keep in mind with these matchups, with these blue-green matchups, is your dock usage. So going into their turn 4, if you don't have Mowgli, but let's say you have 4 characters down, you can opt to just not play anything that turn, knowing that Spooky Sight could come down. And that's really important to recognize, because there's been a lot of games where I force my opponent to use Spooky Sight and then I slam down my dock and all my other characters. So you play something like Aurora into Nala into Lady plus Daisy or whatever, your opponent has to respond with Spooky Sight. They can't slow it down. Now Blue Steel can, but Baja Blast cannot. Like blue-green has no choice but to Spooky Sight unless they also have Under the Sea, but you've blown up their target so they can't Under the Sea you. So now they Spooky Sight you, you say thank you essentially for all the free card draw, and then you slam down your whatever you draw plus the dock plus the 2 characters that you drew off of dock. And how does your opponent respond to that? If they're blue-green, they don't. They just lose. Like there's really nothing they can do at that point. So you don't have to swarm the board, okay? You just don't have to. That's the thing. Against Blue Steel, it's a little bit tougher, but because they can respond with Hades and Vincenzo and take something out every single turn. But blue-green, you don't have to swarm the board like you used to have to do. So remember that. Keep that in mind. Next up, we've got Blurple. And Blurple, remember how good the Blurple match felt last set, right? Like That was a really good matchup for us. It had really great win rates. We saw Aiden beat DKP in top 16. That was a good matchup for us. Maybe it was top 32. It doesn't matter. That was a good matchup for us. Now it's an even better matchup. All right. Yes, some of them are running Spooky Sight. A lot of them have cut Elephant. Some of them still have it, but now a lot of them have cut Elephant. So if they don't run Elephant, then we don't have to worry about Elephant anymore. So that's really helpful. Or they've cut a lot of their Elephants to make room for other stuff. And now they're running stuff like the Tamatoa plus the book that lets you draw 2 cards and Ink Runner. So they have all of this draw package going on, which is good for them. That's great because that's how they're going to be able to beat Blue Green and Blue Steel, but it's how they lose to Amber Steel aggro. So the Blurple matchup has gotten even easier. How you won the Blurple matchup before, you played exactly the same. The only reason I have Mowgli on the page here is because if they use Spooky Sight against you, then now you know they have it. But so now you can kind of play against that. Spooky Sight still, one thing I didn't mention is Mowgli on turn 2 is a phenomenal play if you're on the draw against a blue deck, because there's a good chance you get their ramp card. Now, is it the route I think you should go? It's a gamble, right? Using Mowgli on turn 2 when you're on the play against Blue Steel, Blue Green, or Blue Purple, Sapphire Amethyst is a gamble, because you can either go wide and have big questers, or you can use Mowgli and gamble that you hit their turn 2 ramp, because if you hit their turn 2 ramp, you win. Like, there's no coming back for them at that point. They just auto lose once you hit their turn 2 ramp. So you can gamble on that, or you can go wide and beat them by questing out. But against Blurple, you just play it the same way you played it last set. Okay, I would even like Fire the Cannons is still great because they're still running things like Tipo plus the Basil package. So Basil and Rafiki, some of them. So some of them are more teched for aggro, but a lot have gone a lot more greedy. So just play it the same way you played it before. If they do run Spooky Sight and you see that they do run it, then now you know into game 2, game 3 that you have a better chance of just keeping Mowgli and making your choice at that point. And then finally, we have Purple Steel, and Purple Steel has not gone any better for us in any way, shape, or form. This is still a really rough matchup for us. And you'll see at the top, I have the 2 Troubadours. If you think you will have a lot of Purple Steel, Amethyst Steel in your local meta, then Troubadour is definitely worth slotting in 4 of. I also think that Amethyst Steel will be one of the most popular decks on any like week 1 tournaments, because they don't need Demona or Goliath to have a really strong deck. Like, Purple Steel has the advantage of not having to get fancy testing in, because the Purple Steel gameplay always stays the same. Amethyst Steel is always going to do the same thing no matter what they add in. They go 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop. You get the idea. So if you want a better chance against a lot of Amethyst Steel, then I highly recommend you add in Troubadours. And that's definitely going to be helpful against those Amethyst Steel decks, because Troubadour is able to sing that strength on turn 3. Other than that, I really like going Lady into Jim Deere or Raja. You'll see down below I have Raja there, but I think Jim Deere or Raja is really good into those Amethyst Steel decks. And another good option would be Pete on turn 3. So you can set up your own Strength of a Raging Fire to blow up their Lexington. And Lexington is the new problem child. Lexington's really good. And then now they can also see Calhoun or Black Heron. But Lexington is really the big issue, because that comes down on turn 3. They empty their hand, so that Lexington's going to be ready in their next turn. So Lexington's really the big problem child that you need to keep in mind. Of course, you can still go Aurora into Tiana, but again, that Lexington can just pay the Tiana tax to take out your Tiana. So if you do go Aurora into Tiana, you need to make sure that you're also playing a bodyguard, or you're able to blow up Lexington with Strength of a Raging Fire. So that's kind of how you go about that matchup. You have to first decide, do you want Troubadours, or do you want to gamble on seeing like the Strength of of Raging Fire, the 3-drop, everything like that to blow up Lexington. Because if you can blow up Lexington, there's a really good chance you win the match, especially because Raja trades into all of their stuff. If they go Captain Hook into Calhoun or Black Heron into Lexington, and then you're able to get 4 characters on board, use Strength of a Raging Fire, sing it with Raja to take out Lexington, now they have to send in either they have to hardcast Thunderbolt, so they'd have to have Thunderbolt in their hand, or they'd have to send in Calhoun plus Captain Hook, and that doesn't feel good either for them because they lose both those characters to take out one of yours. So they're now required to have Thunderbolt. If they have it, they have it, right? And that's kind of that. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the video. All right, I hope that I answered a lot of questions about where you think Amber Steel might be going. Okay, I think Amber Steel aggro again is still very much alive, but one thing I did not mention yet that I'm sure a lot of you are very interested in is how do you win the Trove? All right, it's really easy to win the Trove. All you have to do is go down below and you just have to comment on the video and honestly just comment what deck you're most excited for. That's what we'll do. Comment what deck you're most excited to play. You don't need to subscribe. You don't need to like the video. I'm not asking for any of that. Just comment on the video. And by commenting on the video, the only reason I need you to do that is because the tool that I use to pick a winner, stupid camera, the tool that I use to pick a winner is it searches through everybody that's commented. Okay, so if you don't comment, then the tool isn't going to be able to find your name to put you in the drawing. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the video. Comment down below the deck that you're most excited for. With all that being said, stay happy and healthy, and I'll see you all around.